resilient in times of uncertainty, we're going to be asking ourselves some pertinent questions. We're going to be looking at some research, and then we're going to be talking about 5 to 6 things that you can begin doing now and taking action. So I'd like to go ahead and get started with a few of those questions. I want you to think about who you know that is resilient. And as I ask that question, who comes to mind? And maybe just jot that person's name down. Maybe even think about maybe some of their traits. The next question that I want to ask you is, when was the time that you were resilient? What's that story? I want you to make a note of it and for yourself, and maybe think about what it is that you did. It may have been a job loss. It may have been the loss of a person. A time that you were resilient. So please just name that to yourself as you take notes. Before we do a dive into resilience and what that means and what the research is around it, I want to first acknowledge that all of us, and I apologize, this is not the best slide in the world, but all of us right now are probably somewhere on the grief scale. This particular is an adaptation of the Kubler-Ross personal grief scale. This one is used sometimes in corporations because as companies have changed or closed or downsized, people go through all of these different stages of emotion and grief. And I believe that we are probably in some stage right now. And of course, we all know this is not a linear scale. We move back and forward. We feel good one day, then we feel not so good another day. But the end result is we're all trying to move forward to that place where we can start beginning to kind of accept a new normal and start thinking about how we can be positive and how we can contribute to positive change. Just knowing that you may slide back into some of these other emotions. The discomfort that you feel today might be grief. So I just wanted to label that for us because that's probably the actuality we're dealing with. As we move forward, I want to just say for myself, a time that I had to be resilient was when I was downsized in '96 from a sales job. I was devastated. I went through all those stages of loss. It probably took me about 2.5 months to decide what I wanted to do and what I was going to do next. And I actually closed the shades at my house. I worked from home and I really didn't want anyone to know at first because it was hard to accept. And I know a lot of you on the call today, and I know that some of you have gone through this. So that's a time where your world is also turned upside down and you don't know what's coming next and you are on that grief scale. For me, I ended up opening up an outplacement firm and helping others with the very type of pain that I had experienced. I felt that my skill sets would serve that type of work. And that's how I really became interested in resilience. From '96 to 2008, I worked in the outplacement industry, and also finished up in 2001 a clinical psychology master's. But I watched during those 10 to 11 years, I watched how people dealt with loss. I watched different people and how it was different for different people. So it's always intrigued me, and I do think it gave me a good place of working with both individuals and corporations as they planned events, as they tried to help their people, either refocus and move on or heal and, go back to work. I do want to share someone that I know is resilient. This is my sweet grandmother. Her name is Pearl Potter, and she was born in 1898, and she died at the age of 91. She had 6 small children. She had a farm in eastern Kentucky. She was a seamstress, and her husband decided to divorce her when her oldest child was 7 or 8. So, she's always been the picture of resilience. She farmed, which I've tried my hand at gardening, and that's very difficult. She always had food to share with people, and I have no idea how she did it, but I do think she found great purpose in trying to keep her family together. Let's take a look at some of the resilience. And we're going to be looking at a woman named Diane Coutu and her research on the various bodies of research out there related to research. She kind of sums everything up for us in this one statement. She says that resilient people possess three defining characteristics. They accept the harsh realities facing them, they find meaning in terrible times, and they have an uncanny ability to improvise, making do with whatever is at hand. So she shared with us three characteristics based on themes that she sees in the literature, in the research, and and I think that we want to take a really good look at each of those areas. When her first area is facing down the reality, she talks about they possess the ability to accept the harsh realities facing them. And we're going to be sharing this article with you, by the way. But facing down the reality, meaning the true difficulty. And some examples that she gives of that is POW Admiral Jim Stockdale was held in captivity for 8 years. He said that other people around him would get their hopes up that things were going to be happening next week, next month, at a holiday. And he just couldn't do that. He knew, he felt it was going to be a long period of time. And he watched a lot of other people not be able to make it. But he felt that's one of the things he pointed to was his grit and his ability to think longer term and stay focused on the future, longer term, and planning for the future. The other company that she mentions as being resilient was Morgan Stanley. She said that on 9/11, Morgan Stanley was in the second tower. And when the first tower was hit, the Morgan Stanley evacuated in the very next minute from that second tower. And they had 2,700 employees, all but 7 were able to get out. They didn't wait. They didn't wait for someone to call them. They determined that it was not going to be an optimistic situation where everything might be okay. They realized the difficulty that could happen, and they got everyone out except for the 7. So she wanted us to acknowledge that Morgan Stanley here really, again, was saying this is probably more difficult than we realize. Let's do our immediate action. I bring up a fake outplacement client to represent.
I'm just listening to a webinar right now, but I'm getting ready to get off of this.
The number of people that came to me and would say, yes, I stayed up all night, and they came to me for their outplacement meeting. I went ahead and sent out 24 resumes, and I applied for everything online, and they were thinking that they would get a job and replace their job within a couple of days. If you've been through a job search, you know it's a project to be managed. It doesn't happen overnight, and there's planful preparation in moving towards it and understanding it's going to take a period of time to be something that you want. So that was one of the lessons from the outplacement world, but truly facing down the difficulty. The second purpose, the second aspect of someone who's resilient is they're able to find meaning and purpose. Most of you are familiar with Viktor Frankl. I don't think I spelled his name wrong. Correct, I apologize. But I was fascinated to know that during his time in the concentration camp in Germany, he began to imagine himself giving lectures someday after he would come out of the camp to others about what it was like. And he found purpose in that, and he found meaning in that, and that occupied his mind. Edith Eger, if you're not familiar with her, has written the book called The Choice. She's now 91. She is a therapist now, and she's helped many people. She's helped herself to heal through her compassion by helping others to heal from a variety of things. But she also said that she imagined lots of things, and she found her purpose helping people during her time at Auschwitz. I mentioned Norm McDermott, who was one of my outplacement clients. He was an executive, and he had a year's worth of service working with us in our firm. But he found that his purpose became evident to him once his job had gone away, and that was he suddenly had a window of opportunity to help his dad who was ill, and he had that window to help his dad pass away. And he said, I never realized that that became my purpose and my meaning. And then the window closed and he had another job. So he was grateful for that. The fourth person I want to mention here about finding meaning and purpose is Clayton Christensen. You may be familiar with him. He's a Harvard professor and he is responsible for innovative disruption theory. And so a lot of people have read his books, but he developed cancer and he spoke at the 2010 Harvard commencement. And at the commencement, he said, at some point, he decided in his life to spend an hour every night reading and thinking and praying about why God had put him on this earth. And he challenged the graduates at the Harvard commencement that year as they stepped out into this world of recession and difficulty. He challenged them to spend time thinking about what is your purpose and what is it that you're meant to do. This is your time to do that and to make sure you know what your meaning is about. I want to bring up Sean Acker for just a moment. I think Sean Acker helps us find meaning. He has a wonderful TED Talk if you want to take a look at that, but he helps us create a structure for our day, and it's almost a spiritual practice. He says that what 3 things are you grateful for in the morning is a good way to start getting your brain in a positive sorting mode. Making sure that every day it's something different, which is a challenge. He says to exercise for 10 minutes. This gets the body moving and it helps with cortisol if you're struggling right now with kind of sometimes stress and grief will start those negative hormones in your body. We'll talk more about that. Again, he says 10 minutes of meditation or prayer. Quiet time, we know that calm equals insight. When we're calm and we're not busy and we actually slow down the heart rate and we actually start thinking about what we're grateful for, bringing in positive emotions, we start to gain insight, and that actually helps with resourcefulness and creativity. The other thing that he recommends is a random act of kindness every day, which gives us an opportunity to acknowledge someone else. And we get a bigger boost of dopamine than they do when we do something for them, especially randomly. Someone just paid for my meal, Chick-fil-A the other day from the car in front of me, and it really made my day. I, of course, paid for the person behind me. The other thing that he said, 2 other things. At night, ask yourself, what one thing went well today? What one thing? It allows your brain to relive it. It allows you to feel a moment of gratitude for it and to say, what one wish do I have for tomorrow? When you ask yourself that question, your brain starts to use resources during the night in working towards that. So I think Sean can help us with the meaning part. I want to encourage all of you, and we'll show this again at the end of this session, to look at the viacharacter.org. There's a free assessment on there. And this looks like a really fun slide, yay, fun. But this is actually Martin Siegelman, who started in 1998 the positive study of psychology, not just what makes us have mental illness, but what makes us have mental wellness. Go on there, take this free assessment, and learn your top 5 character strengths. I can assure you this will be fun for your family to do. They have them for children. It'll be fun for your team at work to do, because once you understand what your number 1 is, maybe your number 1 is humor. And if it is, you bring that wonderful levity to meetings and you bring that to situations where you're able to see the humor in most bizarre situations. And sometimes that's what helps people get through. Or maybe you have creativity, which we're going to talk more about. So I would encourage all of you to find out what your top 5 are. The third thing that COTU is asking us to look at and is telling us is important for resilience is to get resourceful and get creative. We're hearing stories now about companies that are not making pillows anymore, but making masks because they were able to make that adjustment. And that's what we need right now for this issue that's in front of us. I do know that there's a lot of data about the number of jobs that are started when people go through job loss. People start new businesses. It's out of a necessity, but that's sometimes the mother of invention. So for me, that's when I started a business and did that business for 4 years, helping people with the very pain that I had faced. So this is the time to refocus and to start being productive, but in a way that's meaningful for you. Bill Gates has already issued a statement about 14 things that he has observed and finds meaningful at this time. But one of the main things he says is COVID-19 can either be an end for you to something, or it can be a new beginning. So the ability to make meaning out of things that are horrible, that's what Kutu is telling us. I want to pop this up just for a moment. A lot of you that are on this call, I know, you've studied your right brain, your left brain. You kind of know that about yourself, but sometimes that can be a clue right now as to what your meaning is, as to your giftedness, and what it is that maybe you could focus on right now as you think about giving in new ways and recreating and reinventing. I like looking at strengths right now and actually doing kind of the whole brain walk around to kind of help yourself stay centered about issues that you're facing, projects that you're trying to do, because it can be hard right now to even concentrate. This is the really kind of the what turns you on. And as you think about getting creative, or maybe what you want to do next, or what's most important to you, I'll tell you what jumps out at me. For a couple of years, I wanted to go to the hospital and work in the chaplaincy department and be available when people have surgery, to support them for prayers. Sometimes people don't have anyone, and I've neglected doing that. But as I look at my yellow and my right and the red side, which is where I tend to show up on the Herman brain dominance, when I look at those two areas, I know those are some of my own needs and areas where I can contribute and that are meaningful for me. So I want to ask a few more questions to you. What if understanding who we might become and who we might help, the real work of our lives?
You miss a session. Now, granted, we would love for you to join us throughout the entire day, but we know still busy for a lot of you folks out there. So if you do want to go,
hello. If you could please mute your microphone.
Thank you. Thank you. So what if we say, what if understanding who we might become and who we might help is the real work of our lives? As an individual and organization, we are at our best when we're doing our passion and helping others. What if the question was not how can I achieve, but what can I contribute? What if we start to serve our colleagues in the same way we're serving our customers, with listening and feedback and support and affirmation and ideas? What if we hold each other accountable for meeting our goals, with accountability partners reaching out? What if we hold up a mirror so that when we start to lose sight of our best selves, we're helping each other see ourselves again? This is a quote from the director of the School of London, and he says, "In the past, our jobs were about muscle. Then they're about our brains. In the future, they'll be about heart." Right now, I'm thinking it's about heart for a lot of us. Being compassionate and serving others right now can really help with our own resilience. Our president at Clemson gets up every day and says, "Who will I serve today?" And this was pre-COVID and probably pre-9/11. But he's making a very good point. We are all wired for connection and serving others. Isolation is detrimental to our health. Caroline Leaf is a neuroscientist who is really speaks to a lot of this, and you might want to look at her as well. But isolation has been a concern of mine for some time. The social cognitive neuroscience is telling us that we have to be connecting with others and we have to reach out for help. I'm suggesting to all of you that you find a partner that you are able to talk with on a regular basis about what you're doing, stay connected, revisit your ideas, and that you create some structure for yourself. So the 5 things that you can do now actually is face down the reality of the difficulty we're in. We just talked about it today. We're grieving the loss of what was. Find your meaning in this situation. What is it that helps you feel positive, that you can focus on, that can help you move through this? And then get creative, become resourceful. Ask yourself, what would you love to create? And look at some wonderful TED Talks out there on being creative. What else can you do and contribute? We're going to talk a little bit about self-care in a minute. I'm going to share something with you from the Heart Math Foundation. I'm sorry I spelled math wrong. And then I mentioned already, take the viacharacter.org from Dr. Martin Siegelman. And again, Dr. Siegelman together, there's a ton of research behind that VIA character. And there also is a lot of research on their site about helping yourself grow in different character strengths that are important to you. Right now, I'm going to take a little bit of time and teach you a skill to use that will help you with your resilience. And the Heart Math Institute, I spent a week with them. They work with hospitals and healthcare professionals. They help policemen, firemen, they help the military, even professional athletes are using the Heart Math technologies. The Navy SEAL team uses Heart Math, and we've been bringing it into our MBA E program, where entrepreneurial students have to pitch and have to pivot, and they're under a lot of stress. Because we know through this methodology, you can gain a better sense of calm, and you can actually affect your physiology through some of the breathing. This has all been written up in journals. There's a wonderful article called The New Science of the Heart, which you can download for free. So it's greatly documented. Resilience, in their definition, we've been waiting for this, right? The capacity to prepare for, recover from, adapt in the face of stress, challenge, or adversity. You can learn to build your resilience, and you can sustain your energy. This is learnable. This is doable. This part is not just genetic. Some people get it. This part we can teach. And I just want to say, notice that this definition of resilience is not bounce back. We've always said that about being resilient, but this is a more long-term skill that we're thinking about right now that you can use. We are basically energy systems that expend and renew energy, but our energy is limited. We have to renew. These are the 4 domains of resilience: our physical resilience, our endurance, our strength, our mental flexibility, ability to focus, and our attention span, our emotional flexibility, our positive outlook, and self-regulation. A lot of what we're focusing right here on now will be focused on that. And then our spiritual flexibility, our commitment to our values, and our tolerance of other values and beliefs. All of this comes together, and it's something called coherence. And coherence is now being used in the medical field when all these things come into alignment. So we have a lot of depleting emotions right now, but we're going to talk about depleting emotions and renewing emotions. The depleting emotions right now, such as fear and frustration, impatience, even anger, they have a toxic feeling and a toxic effect on the body, and they cause stress hormones. And they can do a number of things like diminish performance and impair our mental function. We can't concentrate. They can affect our memory. We want to talk about some renewing emotions today. Emotions such as care, courage, tolerance, appreciation, love. These positive emotions can regenerate our system and offset the energy drain, resulting in our increased resilience to adversity, our improved problem solving, even our increased intuition and creativity, and our increased job performance. Because I don't know about you, but right now it's hard for me to go in and work in an online class and stay connected to it and continue to try to be present. Intelligent energy management is what we're talking about according to Heart Math. It's resilience, optimal performance, fulfillment, and health grounded in the management of our energy. So let's take a look at some of the ways that we can do it. First, I want to talk a little bit about heart-focused breathing. This is one of the first techniques. Heart-focused breathing is powerful, and it helps us to regulate. It's the first step in shifting to a more coherent state, making sure that you're alert and calm at the same time, alert in your brain, but calm in your heart. It can help us maintain composure in challenging situations. I'll just tell you that when I'm with my 2 parents who are both in their 80s and they're both talking to me at the same time, my heart rate sometimes on my watch goes up to 110. If I can move away for just a moment and I can do deep heart-focused breathing, I literally watch my heart rate come down on my phone to around 55, 60 where it normally stays, and I feel a lot calmer. So for right now, I want you to sit back in your chair. I want you to breathe in and out very slowly and very deeply, and I want you to focus on the area of your heart. Let's do this for 4 times. Thank you for doing that with me. When we do the heart-focused breathing in and out, slower and more deeply than usual, set a rhythm that's comfortable for yourself. Breathing into the heart or into the chest area, slowly and deeply. You literally can watch your heart rate start to come down. Let's talk about bringing in the word ease. We're moving ourselves into a place of stillness, but let's talk about when we exhale, say the word breathe, ease, to yourself. So breathing in on a count of 5 and then ease out on a count of 5. 4 times. When we bring in the word ease, we're bringing in an active calm. As last year, over 30,000 policemen in Europe were trained in this methodology. EMT members are trained in it, so they know how to enter a state of calm, which helps them think more clearly because the brain receives more messages from the heart than the heart receives from the brain. So let me repeat that. The heart sends more messages to the brain than the brain sends to the heart. And that's what we're talking about here. So the inner ease technique just means you focus your attention in the area of the heart. You breathe slowly and deeply. With each breath, you draw in a feeling of inner ease and you let that resonate on your body and your shoulders. Inner ease as we engage in your projects or daily interactions. This allows you to go back to your breathing. Heart-focused breathing, drawing in the feeling of inner ease and anchoring in that feeling. It's a reset for you, but it takes practice for you to get good at doing it and really be able to start to see the difference in bringing your heart down. You can use this in meetings. You can use this when you're in a stress mode with your family or children and step away and begin this purposeful breathing. And it gives us a choice point. In the heat of the moment, we can pause and do this. And we know we're going to make better choices because the messages to the brain change. So there actually is physiology there. Lots of applications for this, for anger, overwhelm, anxiety, helping us stay poised and to enhance, again, our creativity and our insight. Because according to the neuroscience, calm equals insight. That's when we get the good ideas. The physiology of coherence and optimal functioning, I'm not going to go deeply into the science of this because it is there for you. Please look at the HeartMath website for their free resources. But it's fascinating to know that the heart sends messages to the brain. The heart has neurotransmitters on it just like the brain. And that's really new information that we're just learning. The signals from the heart, you've always heard it, listen to your heart, speak from your heart. But the signals from your heart especially affect the brain centers involved in strategic thinking, reaction, and self-regulation. So right now, for us to do this control of what's happening with our heart and pull in positive emotions can be very effective. I'll just show you quickly at the top is if we were to plug someone in and they were in a state of frustration, that's what their heartbeats would look like. When they begin to do the deep heart-focused breathing, the heartbeats look very different. And you can get equipment to do this on your own. You can do this on your own with your iPhone, but you can really start to get biofeedback around what's happening with your emotions and how it's affecting your heart. Heart rate variability changes throughout the course of our life, but it's an important indicator of our physiological resiliency and ability to handle stress. It does look different when we look at that of children and we look at that of older adults. But again, this is why HRV is becoming important for medical doctors to look at, and also because it's an indication of our physical resiliency. Our physiological resiliency, which is the whole picture. Let's talk for a moment about depleting emotions. I have a nurse friend who in the past, maybe not now, but she used to carry this in the hospital with her. When we are on the right side of the sheet, and you can literally print this for yourself, and renewing emotions are what we're thinking about. We are creating DHEA, which is a positive chemical in our body, in our hormonal system. So happiness and gratitude and joy and positivity and appreciation, everything that's on that side, doing a random act of kindness puts us on the right-hand side over there and charges our battery. When we get over into the depleting emotions on the left-hand side, such as frustration and fear, worry, anxiety, we start producing cortisol. If you've ever had that feeling that cortisol is just literally going up the back of your neck and you could feel it in your body, you know that you need to do something to change. Running, doing things physically also help, but definitely switching. You can't just go sit on a beach and make the cortisol go away. You have to really move back into space of positive emotions, and that's why it's so important to train your brain to do that. The sympathetic, the parasympathetic, the low heart rate is when we're in that deep state of relaxation, when we're doing that very slow breathing. But when we get into the high heart rate at the top of the scale, with the depleting emotions, the sympathetic system kicks in, and that's when we really can get into a state of not being able to think as clearly. So there are 3 strategies for building and sustaining resilience according to the heart math with this self-care tool. You can prep for the tone of the day by doing your deep breathing. Some people use rosary beads and accomplish something very similar. You can shift and reset to more coherent states throughout the day to minimize your energy drain. When you realize it's happening or you realize all of a sudden you're feeling that stress, go back and remember what's good in your life. You can sustain your resilience throughout the day with regular practice by remembering to refresh your composure throughout activities and events. Practice this. You can get better at this. I want to show you how it's being used in law enforcement. If in this case, an officer was wearing the heart rate monitor. He ran into a domestic violence situation, and he realized that he had encountered someone who's potentially dangerous. His heart rate went up almost to 180. At the end of the situation, the officer was able to shift and reset. And you can see over there where he brings his heart rate back down to where it was when he started. But before he was trained in the ability to do that, his heart rate would stay up at that area of 170 to 180, sometimes until the rest of the shift, and even when he went home, because he had no tool to reset and to bring it down. And that's why officers, again, are being trained in this. First responders are being trained in this. Hospital personnel are being trained in this, but business people are being trained. So the ability, again, to bring your heart rate down and to shift back into the positive emotion. What we were finding is that officers died 5 to 7 years after retiring because they had so much residual cortisol. The freeze frame technique just helps for stopping energy drains, and it's good when you want to start making decisions and thinking out of the box for solutions. And what they're suggesting here is really just very similar to, and I'm going to move through this a little bit, acknowledge the difficulty of what you're going through. Take some time to do the heart-focused breathing. Maybe set your phone for about 5 to 7 minutes, and that's hard to do. But as you notice your heart rate coming down and as you feel the sense of calm and you pull in a positive emotion, such as gratitude or a renewing feeling, such as being at the beach or looking at a picture of your grandchild or having your pet beside you. A lot of people use their animals. Then ask yourself, what is it I need to do now? And observe your reaction and maybe determine what you want to act on. I find this very similar to prayer. But again, it's all about pulling in and focusing on the heart breathing, which does get you in a spiritual state to where you can begin to hear that inner voice, to ask those questions. Because when you ask the brain, when you ask those questions, the prefrontal cortex will absolutely start giving you answers. So it's a good way to hear our intuition and tap into that inner voice. Getting in sync for difficult situations, getting yourself in a coherent state where you feel calmer. Ask yourself what's the appropriate attitude to take into the situation and really try to sustain that emotion as you go in, reminding yourself, but getting yourself into that physiological state of calm and the preferred heart rate. I just want to remind everyone about relational energies for a moment. We all have electricity in our heart. Here it is on electrocardiogram. That energy can be picked up by other people, whether we're feeling frustration or appreciation. In some of the studies they've done, we find that our animals pick up our heart rate variability and will begin to match it. We find that a mother and her baby, the same thing. The baby's heart rate will begin to match the heart rate. So there is a coherence and an electrical connection between us. We call it emotional energetics. So when we're centered and in sync, we create a more coherent field. And we're also less affected by others' incoherence. So it's a really bit of a protection for us. Cultivating appreciation fosters a team coherence and makes for a healthier, more productive work environment. I personally, when I read that and revisited that recently, it reminded me that kindness and passion and love and enthusiasm and a positive attitude, those things are contagious too. And we can all take those into the situations that we're going into these days. I want to make sure that I do touch on one more thing, and then we'll wrap up and maybe take any questions that you have. But sometimes you can notice that when you're caring for either people or situations, you can get yourself into a state of worry and anxiety. It's good to be offering care, but you want it to be balanced, and you want to distinguish between care and overcare. Overcare means perfectionism. Just like today, I wanted this presentation to be perfectionist, but of course it's never going to be perfect. Nothing is perfect. And so when we're able to let go of some of our performance anxiety, our perfectionism, let go of some of the worry and the guilt and so forth, and let go of that kind of overcare, but certainly care for each other and be on the lookout for strain in each other. Compassion is a wonderful tool to help with resilience. Lend a hand and a mature heart, a heart that knows a positive emotion. Help each other with positive emotional, with the strain that we're now feeling, and create alternatives and to build a new foundation for heart-based communication. The woman who had the heart attack, is it her stroke of insight, Jill Taylor, she's an anatomist from Harvard. She had a stroke, and she said the thing she learned the most was to be responsible for the energy you bring into the room. Because as she lay there in the hospital bed, she literally could read the energy as the left side of her brain was shut down and she had the right side because of her aneurysm. So be responsible for the energy you take into the room. It's almost palpable. So let's just for a recap, resilient people possess 3 defining characteristics. Accept the harsh reality, Find meaning even in terrible times, and improvise, doing what you can with whatever is at hand. Once again, a recap: face down the difficulty, find meaning, get creative. Practice self-care regularly with heart-focused breathing. Take the free BIAcharacter.org with Dr. Siegelman on his site. And I think we have articles for you if you're interested in those. They'll be listed here, and I think you can get those through Nan's site. Also go to the HeartMath site for their free services and check out what they have available. They do have certified trainers from the HeartMath organization if you need one personally or your team needs one. And I've been certified through HeartMath as well. Thank you all for listening today. I am never in a classroom where I'm doing all the talking, and I'm a little uncomfortable with technology today, but I thank you for your patience. I hope that you gained something from it. If there are any questions, we will try to address those now, and Jeremy is monitoring those. And Jeremy, thank you for all your support today. And if there aren't questions, then we can conclude our meeting.
Gail, at this time, there are no questions.
Okay.
I have one question, actually a request. Is there a way you can share this presentation with us?
Yes, we can absolutely work on sharing the presentation with you. I'll talk to Nan about that.
Oh, okay, good. Because I saw many slides that I think that it is interesting, and I would like to share with my team and also with other people that I know.
Sure, absolutely. We'll absolutely work on that as when we hang up from this call.
Yeah, we sure will. We'll make it available in the best way we can do it. Thank you, everyone. I know each of you got at least something, if not a ton of great information, and that you'll be able to put it to use. And Gail, of course, thank you so much, and Jeremy too. And please just